this is how you're laying out, but rather more on some ways that you can persuade, instances that you've used persuasive writing in your own life. So I tell kids, anytime you watch an ad on TV, anytime you're trying to get your parents to buy you something, that's where you're trying to persuade. And so fun writing topics like, if aliens were going to come to the Earth, how would you persuade them not to destroy it? So focusing on fun writing topics can be a great one. And for each new topic, I ask a lot of questions to help students come up with things to write about. So for example, what did it look like? How big was it? And another thing that I try to do, and this might be just me being polite, but I also try to praise students for each new achievement without pointing too many flaws. So those are some of the things that I really love to do with writing. And once students get excited with writing, if I start out by saying that there aren't any rules, then they will be more receptive to learning the rules of writing. As a writer myself, beginning, I was not really so great with handwriting. I misspelled words pretty frequently. But once I really got into writing, once I started typing, I was pretty gung-ho about being able to improve my writing, making it look good, and making it correct. So a kid who identifies as a soccer player will want to get better at soccer, and kids who identify as writers will want to get better at writing. And I know that a lot of students have trouble with really open-ended assignments, so I still give them guidelines, and the trick is to be specific but not be alarmed if students write something a little off topic. So, and I think that some of the things that I do to combat a fear of writing can be applied to other topics as well, starting off by not focusing so much on right and wrong, but more on getting students to really be interested in a topic. Any questions that you've thought of? It's too bad I didn't have your names ahead of time to put into the fruit machine, but oh well. And I have to say, the one thing about video conferencing is it's a little hard to point at who I want to talk. So that's usually the teacher will call on students when I'm video conferencing. Now I am interested though to hear about the video conferencing unit that you have. Did you just recently get this, or has it been in your school for a long time?
We've had video conferencing, but we haven't, our county, our district hasn't really used it a lot for classroom instruction. That's an area that we want to improve on. We've been using it mostly for like some professional development. So we're trying and we're hoping in the future to kind of use it in the classrooms more.
Yes, and definitely, because this is one of the things I think that shouldn't happen in technology, is that the technology gets bought and not really used. And definitely video conferencing can be applied in lots of ways. Professional development is one, and the CILC, which I mentioned, they also have professional development programs, which are great to find. So professional development programs, marketplace. And also being able to look for programs for students. Video conferencing can be helpful when it comes to having students in one school participate with students in another school to create a project or to work on a similar project. It can also be really handy if there is a subject that you do not have teachers for, but that you would like students to get some exposure to, or if there's a topic maybe for a certain cultural event or for special events, getting an expert in to talk about that might be another good thing to do. So there are lots of ways that video conferencing can be utilized in the classroom for professional development, virtual field trips. There's just a really long list. So you've been doing professional development then? Have you been doing any student programs?
No, we did, I think, one last year. It wasn't that successful.
Okay. Yeah, and it's, I think that making video conferencing available not just to teachers but also to students is important, because video conferencing, for me, it's definitely, I really enjoy doing it, and I think that students should have the opportunity to see it because it is something that is increasingly being used in the workplace and business, and having exposure to this kind of technology and seeing how it can be utilized for education can be really handy. So that's something that would be recommended. Now, one of the cool things is if your classroom has a certain thing that they're learning about, or maybe a specific topic, let's say you search writing, or writing dynamics, that's the name of one of my programs, or maybe the 6 traits. So if I hit 6 traits, then you get 6 traits of good writing voice, 6 traits of good writing sentence fluency. Now I have to admit I was a little sneaky because all of these, I do all the 6 traits programs over video conferencing myself, so that's kind of my way of advertising them in a session. But definitely, if your classroom has a need, just being able to search that and find content for it can be really powerful. Now, what are some ways that you think technology, or that you foresee technology will be used in your classroom?
I'm sorry, would you ask that again?
Sure. What are some ways you foresee technology will be used in your classroom? So do you think that there will be more online content, or more video conferencing content, or more, maybe what kind of content you'll be using as far as technology goes?
I would like to get my students blogging. I have them writing journal entries every week. So as soon as the yearbook is published, and I think I'm going to require them to put one of their journal entries that they've written by hand on the blog, and see if we can try something like that.
Yeah, putting a journal entry on the blog, that sounds like a great idea. And it really comes down to, for me, I like having my writing shared. So when I was 6, I'd written hundreds of short stories, and I wasn't really content just to have my family read them. I wanted it to be out there, seen to a wider world. And I think that a lot of students feel that way, that they want their reading to be read not just by their teacher, not just by their family, but by their classmates and by other people from their school. And so definitely putting work on a blog, or putting work on a web page or a portal, can be a great way to do that. And another thing to consider is that you might have seen what happens to students' work after it's turned in and after it gets a grade. Sometimes it just disappears into the shadowy recesses of somebody's binder and ends up getting lost. And so putting it on a blog is a more permanent way to ensure that it's going to be somewhere safe, or at least a little more safe than the shadowy depths of somebody's binder. My older sister has a really huge, messy binder that's like 2 stories tall, so I have some inspiration on that. Any other questions I can take? Okay, I'm seeing a largely mute audience. Let me see. Actually, one time, I go to a lot of education conferences talking about technology tools and the kids I do at the classroom and everything. And recently I was at the National Middle School Association conference in Indianapolis, Indiana. And again, there were very, very few questions. And so I was racking my brains about some way to get more questions out. And so the next conference I went to was the Florida Education Technology Conference, or FETC. And so going there, I had a featured speech. It was in the Innovative Classroom, or the Classroom of Tomorrow was what they called it. It was this room, and it had all these computers and high-tech stuff. Anyway, in the Classroom of Tomorrow, the internet wasn't working, so I had to kind of write a new presentation by hand, as I had put my presentation in my email inbox. And in this presentation, there wasn't quite as much material to cover, so I had extra time for questions and answers. And nobody was asking questions as usual, so I decided to do a collaborative writing activity instead. I start writing, and I was talking about a journalistic style kind of reporting on the conference, and I wrote that despite repeated solicitations for speech, Adora's audience in the Classroom of Tomorrow at on the exhibit floor remained largely mute, and then everybody started getting some incentive to come up with questions to ask, because I threatened to post that on the blog. Yeah, so that was one thing I did to try to get people to ask more questions. And now, writing is one topic that I talk about mainly, and so that is another thing that I do is try to get students to understand what the end result is, what they're doing the rating for. So I use paths like blogging to give writing a greater sense of relevance. And I think that students who publish their writing get a greater sense of accomplishment because instead of just disappearing after it's written, their writing is on display and it's something that they can be proud of. And I also know, as you mentioned, that your school district doesn't allow blogging, so if that doesn't work for a class, you might check out websites that allow students to publish their examples online privately or without privacy concerns. And then allowing students to write about gross or funny topics can be really great as well, dead mice being a perfect example. Yes, well, any last questions? I can take them before I wrap up.
Can you cite any website that would be helpful also, like for strategies that would work in teaching math?
Strategies that would work with teaching math. Let's see. Since math is not the topic that I talk about, let's see. I know that there are a lot of websites that have math videos. So, many require subscriptions. Let's see. Webmath.com, I think it has like explanations to some problems, and then Purple Math is another one. I think that that's a form of resources about math. So Purple Math and Webmath are the two free ones I'm familiar with. I know that there are a lot of sites that offer content but for a fee. As far as math goes, and yeah, that's a really good point as far as math resources, and I'll do some more investigating on that because so you teach math then?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
teaching math, so I was like, I would want my kids to be more interested with the thing that we're talking in the classroom about numbers and stuff,
Okay. And what grade level math do you teach?
10 geometry.
Elementary, okay. Great. Actually, let's see, I know that sometimes displaying it like with a projector, that can be handy, making it really visual, especially like for shapes and stuff, and maybe having students interact with that. And yeah, I really like learning about math myself, but sometimes reading the page and I see all these terms and I'm like, what does that mean exactly? Being able to see that is really handy as far as visualizing. So using like the LCD projectors that you guys mentioned, that would be great. And showing it on the big screen. Any other questions? Okay, well then thank you very much. I really enjoyed speaking with you and I hope that you have enjoyed learning about some handy technology tools, and thank you for suggesting the ones that you did, and I hope that you all have fun using video conferencing, investigating handy technology tools, and happy teaching. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.